What if I told you there was once a car that could run on Chanel No. 5 whiskey and even turpentine? A car so ahead of its time, it left everyone else choking on its jet-powered fumes, until it didn't. Meet the Chrysler Turbine Car, a machine so bizarre, so audacious, that it could only come from the wild minds of the 1960s. In the heart of the 20th century, where dreams were as big as tail fins, Chrysler decided to play with fire, literally. In the swinging 60s, while everyone else was busy putting men on the moon, Chrysler had its sights set on a different kind of revolution. They wanted to reinvent the wheel, literally. And what better way to do that than by slapping a jet engine into a family sedan? Enter the Chrysler Turbine Car, a vehicle that could run on pretty much anything that burned. Seriously, anything. It was like the car equivalent of your weird uncle who'd drink whatever was left in the liquor cabinet at the end of the night. The birth of a jet-powered dream. It all started in the late 1950s when Chrysler's engineers, possibly after one too many espresso shots, had a wild idea. What if we took the turbine engine from a jet and shoved it into a car? After all, what could possibly go wrong? Spoiler alert, a lot. But more on that later. The turbine engine was a marvel of engineering, boasting just 20 moving parts compared to the hundreds in a traditional internal combustion engine. It was like the Marie Kondo of car engines, streamlined, efficient, and capable of sparking joy, or at least a really impressive bonfire. And unlike your average car, which would turn up its nose at anything other than gasoline, the turbine car was an equal opportunity guzzler. Jet fuel? No problem. Diesel? Sure thing. Perfume? Why not? Chrysler even claimed it could run on peanut oil, though that may have been more about proving a point than practical fuel advice. And thus, the Chrysler Turbine Car was born. A car so futuristic, it could probably drive itself to Mars. This was a car that didn't just think outside the box. It torched the box and used the flames to power itself down the road. Futuristic flair with a dash of WTF. Now, let's talk design. If the engine was revolutionary, the car's body was straight out of a sci-fi movie. The Chrysler Turbine Car looked like it was designed by someone who'd binge-watched a few too many episodes of The Jetsons. With its bronze-colored exterior and turbine-shaped taillights, this car didn't just turn heads, it spun them around like a propeller. The turbine car wasn't just a vehicle, it was a statement. A statement that said, I might be a car, but I also might be a spaceship. Try and figure that one out. And those turbine sounds? Oh, they weren't your typical V8 roar. Instead, it was more of a high-pitched whine, like a hairdryer on steroids. Chrysler insisted this was the sound of the future, but to some people, it was just the sound of a really bad headache. Imagine cruising down the highway, windows down, and instead of the comforting rumble of an engine, you're treated to the dulcet tones of a jet taking off. And if that didn't get you noticed, the smell certainly would. Depending on what you used for fuel, your car could either smell like a bakery, a distillery, or a slightly burnt turkey dinner. Truly, this was a vehicle for all the senses. Turbine fever takes over America. Chrysler wasn't shy about hyping their creation. In 1963, they rolled out a fleet of 55 turbine cars to lucky members of the public, who were chosen to test drive these mechanical marvels. It was like winning the lottery, but instead of cash, you got a jet-powered car that may or may not explode in your driveway. For 2 years, these futuristic vehicles were driven by everyday Americans, from the suburbs to the city streets. People were awestruck. Kids chased after it like it was the ice cream truck. Neighbors gathered around just to hear the turbine whine and take a whiff of whatever exotic fuel was in the tank that day. Chrysler called it the car of the future. And for a brief, shining moment, it felt like the future was now. But as with all things too good to be true, there was a catch. Actually, there were several. First, the car was notoriously slow to accelerate. While it could eventually reach impressive speeds, getting there was a bit like waiting for a kettle to boil. And speaking of boiling, the engine was prone to overheating if you dared to push it too hard. But hey, who needs speed when you've got style, right? And then there was the matter of maintenance. Sure, the turbine engine was supposed to be simpler, but that didn't make it any less finicky. The slightest hiccup and you were looking at a repair bill that could fund a small country's space program. Why the turbine dream died. So, with all this hype, why didn't the Chrysler Turbine Car become the next big thing? Why aren't we all driving jet-powered cars today? The answer, like so many things in life, comes down to money, politics, and a healthy dose of bad luck. First off, the car was expensive. And not just, I need to save up for a few years expensive, but I need to sell my house and possibly a kidney expensive. The turbine engine was a marvel, but it was also costly to produce. Chrysler would have needed to sell these cars at a loss or charge so much that only the super rich could afford them. And even then, the prospect of maintaining such a vehicle was enough to give even the wealthiest buyer pause. Then there was the issue of infrastructure. While the turbine car could run on almost anything, that didn't mean it was practical. Gas stations weren't exactly stocking Chanel No. 5 or peanut oil, and the idea of converting every service station in America to accommodate these futuristic vehicles was a logistical nightmare. Plus, the oil companies weren't too thrilled about the idea of a car that could sidestep their entire industry. Big Oil wasn't just going to roll over and let this turbine revolution happen. Show clips of various people driving the car with exaggerated expressions of shock and awe. Driver 1, "It's so quiet. I thought I was floating on a cloud." Driver 2, "I filled it with kerosene. My wife thinks I'm starting a barbecue." And let's not forget the government. Ah yes, Uncle Sam. Always ready to step in with a clipboard full of regulations. The turbine engine, while efficient in some ways, wasn't exactly environmentally friendly by the standards of the time. The exhaust was hot enough to roast marshmallows, and the emissions were, well, let's just say they wouldn't pass today's strict standards. In the end, Chrysler faced a perfect storm of financial, technical, and political challenges. The dream of a jet-powered future was grounded by the cold, hard realities of the world. So, what happened to those 55 gleaming turbine cars? Well, like all good things, their time in the spotlight came to an end. Chrysler, perhaps realizing that their jet-powered dream was becoming more of a financial nightmare, decided to pull the plug. But instead of selling the cars or putting them in museums, they did something unthinkable. They destroyed almost all of them. Yes, you heard that right. Of the 55 turbine cars built, only 9 were spared from the crusher. The rest were reduced to scrap metal, their engines silenced forever. The few surviving cars were given to museums and a couple of private collectors. Today, they serve as a reminder of a time when the future seemed limitless, and a jet-powered car wasn't just a crazy idea, it was almost reality. The turbine's lasting impact. While the Chrysler Turbine Car may not have revolutionized the automotive industry, it left a lasting legacy. It showed the world that there were alternatives to the internal combustion engine and that the future of transportation could be as wild and imaginative as we dared to dream. Today, as we see electric cars and hybrids becoming the norm, we can trace some of that innovation back to the bold, if ultimately doomed, experiment that was the Chrysler Turbine Car. The Chrysler Turbine Car may not have changed the world, but it certainly made it a more interesting place. And who knows, maybe someday someone will dust off those old blueprints and we'll get another shot at that jet-powered future. Until then, we can only imagine what it would be like to drive a car that smells like Chanel No. 5 and sounds like a jet engine. And really, isn't that dream worth holding on to?